The upper wade water between the lakes here, I think, is the prettiest spot, definitely on the Madison, and then possibly one of the prettiest spots in the whole state of Montana. We've got, this is the original gorge. This is pretty much how it always was. There's maybe 1.5 miles of river, this whole stretch. It's between Hebgen Reservoir and Quake Lake, the lake that was formed by the earthquake in 1959. This is how the water, you know, like in the upper park, you go through a lot of the river goes through the old burn from '88, so you don't see what it used to look like. And this is pretty much it. This is no burn. It's as pretty as it gets. It's a good population of fish in here. This is, ooh, missed him. This is my favorite stretch of water, scenic value-wise, in the entire river. I fish this a lot myself. This river, this section of river is open year-round. This stretch is open to all types of fishing. It has the most, it's unfortunate because it's the spawning grounds for a lot of the river, this mile of river, because it's got such a good substrate of small gravel. There's an awful lot of spawning goes on up here, and unfortunately it's open year-round, and it has the most liberal kill rate. It's a 5-fish limit up here, whereas most of the river is, you know, catch and release and artificial lure. This one's open to everything. This stretch is open to everything. And it holds its own, even though it takes a pretty good pounding for people looking to keep fish. This is pretty much the typical Madison. This is boulder strewn, freestone river, you know, rocky substrate, big boulders creating lots of pocket water. I'm just on the inside of one big pocket right here, but as you look out in front of me, you can see 3 big boulders that are creating white water. That's going to be how the next, especially the next 10 miles, for the 7 miles below Quake Lake and the 1.5 miles or so between the 2 lakes, this is what it is, all boulders. Unless there's a really good hatch or you're fishing big bugs like hoppers and stuff like that, most people prefer to nymph it, I think, just because it's so broken and fast. It's hard to see the fly, hard to keep a fly afloat, but it's still really good dry fly water. And so it's real prolific. There's, you know, just about any kind of insect at any given time, especially if you're nymphing. You've got a possibility to fish just about anything. That's why so many people use general attractors in here, like a prince nymph, that really isn't one thing specifically. It's a whole lot of things. And they can get away with it because there's just so much abundance of food for the fish to eat that you can fish just about anything you want, you know, relatively speaking, and get away with it because there's just that many bugs in the water. For most of the park water where we just left, I fish a 9-foot 4-weight, or if I'm fishing the lower park when I'm streamer fishing, I use a 6-weight when I'm streamer fishing. But down here, just by virtue of the flow of the water, there's so much pressure on the water, it's not a bad idea to step your rod up maybe to a 5-weight. I like a 9-foot 5 down here. It gives you a little bit more ability to get around the rocks with your casts and your mending, the extra length of it being a 9-foot. But it also gives you a little bit more shock absorption. There's a lot of times when you've got to really lean into these things, because when they hit, they're going to go out for the fast water. And so you can get away with a 4-weight, but I like to step up to at least to a 5. I just saw a stonefly go by. This is where you've got to start looking at adjusting your weight systems, your lead. I tell people in the store all the time that if the difference between a 10 fish morning and a 2 fish morning is usually about 6 or 8 inches in the water column, because if you're down where you belong, if you're catching the bottom every once in a while, like I'm tapping every once in a while, that's telling you you're down where the fish are at. If the fish are up and you're seeing them porpoise, obviously you're not going to need the weight. But in this water, the critical aspect of fishing any pocket water like this is to be touching bottom. Now it's easier to touch bottom and adjust your fly height with your system than it is to try to guess. If you need 2 B shot, like right here I need 2 B shot. If I use 1, and this rule holds true throughout this entire river, if I'm using 1, I'm probably this far from bottom. I just won't, because it's going through there very fast. I just won't hit bottom. So it's imperative that you set your weight, for every single run. Sometimes if I move down into this faster water, I might have to add a little bit more, maybe an A shot. Well, I'm losing light pretty fast. We kind of stopped in here. This is the tail end of the day. We're hoping to get something right here. I'm losing light. I've got a lot of bugs. I'm surprised we didn't pick anything right here, but tomorrow is another day. Last night we finished up between the lakes, and that's between Hebgen and Quake Lake. Just above me is Quake Lake, and just below me is the Madison proper. This is the 50-mile riffle. This is what most people consider one of the best pocket water fisheries in the world. Behind me you can see the slide. This was the earthquake in 1959. This is a natural dam, if you will. There is no dam below Quake Lake. A lot of people think there is, but this is it. When the earthquake happened, it closed the river completely. Took months to open it back up, and as you can see, it condensed the river dramatically. We've got Quake Lake above us, and we've got the Madison below us. This is the most intense part of the river. The next 1.5 miles is the slide-in area, the area where it's the most bouldery, the most gradient, the fastest water. It's dangerous water to walk. If you're careful, it's still fishable. As you can see, it's a lot of big boulders. But this is the beginning of what most people consider the Madison River. This is where probably 90% of the people fish the Madison. The next 50 miles from the slide in to Ennis is one continuous riffle. Not this intense, but definitely whitewater and fast pocket water fishing. So we're going to start here. Very few people wade this stretch. It's a little dangerous. As you can see, the banks are constantly eroding. So you've got to be careful up in here if you're wading, because you can't hear landslides, you can't hear rocks coming because of the noise of the water. But we're going to start fishing just below this, just above the slide in, a mile or so, 1.5 miles below us. And it's going to widen out a little bit, and it's going to become a little less gradient. This is where the state has designated that you can't fish from a boat. From this point to Lyons Bridge has to be fished on foot. So this is the walk-wade stretch. And then when we get down below Ennis, we're going to get to the Jeffers or the Valley Gardens section, and again you're going to have a walk-wade section. But this upper 7 miles is all walk-wade. You can float it with a boat, but you have to get out to fish. So we're going to go downstream from here. We're going to start just above the slide-in lodge, and we're going to start fishing that water, show you that, and then we'll start progressing our way downstream. I'm using a 9-foot 5-weight rod, and I've gone to a I'm still using a 2-fly system, but I'm going to a right angle system, which means I've tied in a piece of yarn, and then below that yarn I'm running straight 2X tippet to my split shot, and then a 2-fly system. I've even changed my line. I designed a line for this water. It's an indicator line. I think that's important. If you're going to fish all day here to fish with nymphs, you don't want a long, light tapered dry fly line. If you can get a short tapered line, it's a lot easier turning over an indicator and a split shot than it is to use them. If you've got that opportunity, you know, get a specialty line for this. And a different leader system if you can. I like right angle systems, but whatever it takes you and whatever you're comfortable with to get to bottom. You fish the inside 10 feet of this river, maybe 15, but if you can't wade to it, don't even just pretend it's not there. Carefully fish the inside 10 or 15 feet of this river. You won't believe how many fish are in here. They don't want to be in that big water either. They want to stay in the softer seams, and so if you're careful and you walk up here and you just pick your points and look for seams, and I'll show you when I get out there what I'm talking about, but that softer water that's on the inside or behind the boulders. They'll hang in the fast water too, especially if people have been wading through there a lot. But for the most part, they're going to stay on the inside because they're looking for bugs, and the bugs go by them wide open out in that fast water. Here we're just going to look for the fish that are sitting in the softer pocket water and seams. As you get out here, we'll show you some of that right here. But I'm going to start at the bottom end of this, and I'm just going to work my way around this big fast. This is one of the heaviest waters in the whole upper river. And you'll see I'm just going to walk the inside and fish real methodically, real slow up here. I make 2 or 3 casts, not long casts. You know, a 20-foot, 30-foot cast is pretty long here because you're just trying to get the fly to bottom, have control over it, and you keep moving out. I do 1 cast, 2 casts, 3 casts. I just keep moving out, fish this entire seam. One thing you learn to contend with on the Madison is wind. It's a pretty rare day when it doesn't blow here. Especially early and late on the Madison, you'll find them in close. Once people pushed them out a little bit, then you got to pay a little more attention to the seams out there that are out a little deeper. Don't be afraid to use small flies. I've got probably the most common method here is to run an attractor up above like a Prince nymph or a copper john or a lightning bug, something of that sort as an attractor. And a lot of times they get on them. But then below the attractor, people generally run smaller flies. But for the most part, you'll be running flies in the 16 to 22 range when you're nymphing, because that's what the fish are going to be seeing. And they have zero problem finding them out here. I spend a little more time making repetitive casts into the same area because there's a lot of hydraulic effect to this water. This means it's lifting your flies up and down and they're going all over the place. You don't necessarily get the drift that the fish wants. They won't go a long ways in this river to get a fly because there's so much coming at them. I can see a 16-inch rainbow right at my feet. Matter of fact, I can see 2. Can you see right in front of this rock? Can you see in there? There's a 17-inch rainbow right there, just in front of this rock, and there's one to the right of them. We are 6 feet from that fish. It's a big red-sided rainbow. His tail's actually touching the rock most of the time. But they sure stack into these spots. If you're going to fish dry flies on the Madison, this is definitely what you're looking for, these soft water edges. These fish will be just stacked up right in this edge here. We'll get one right here, and then we're going to move downstream. There he is. Now see what he did? He immediately went out to that fast water, which makes for a lot of, even a smaller fish seems pretty big here because he You're always trying to get them out of there. You got to keep up with them. Work the eddies for yourself, because they'll want to come back up these eddies. Oh, look at that. Pulled out. Oh well. That happens when you use these little tiny flies. He was on the little betas. Didn't get quite enough of them. More where that came from. Yeah, it was actually a brown trout. I thought it was a rainbow in the beginning, but it looked like a brownie when he popped off there. Oh. That's, you know, especially with these little hooks, that's kind of par for the course. You get a fish out into that big stuff, and you're going to do that a lot. It's going to come back with your whole rig and just pulls out. Fish are starting to come on the bite, but it's time for us to get moving downstream. Where we're going to go from here is we're going to take you through the wade stretch, and then we're going to go down and we're going to float below that. But the next 3 put-ins we're going to show you are all the walk-in areas where you cannot fish from the boat. You've got to walk, wade, angle it. So we're going to leave here, and our next destination is going to be Reynolds Bridge. It's one of the most popular areas. Below that is the $3 bridge project, and then we'll go down to the put-in, which is at Lions Bridge. So we're going to head down there as soon as I make one more cast. There's a big one out there. All right. I have trouble leaving these things. I must do it. Gene, did you see the size of that rainbow? This is the bread and butter of the Madison. This is what most of the people come to fish, and it's these great big stoneflies. Of all the dry fly and of all the time that people come to fish here, this is probably the most, probably 70% of the time is spent just on these bugs. And you can see it's because they're so meaty. And they start out, we've got 3 or 4 different types of stoneflies here. Starts out early. The first ones you're going to see are the little yellow sallies. And they're kind of petite, small little flies. And this fly is going to, it's not as really, really important, but you always got to have them. Little yellow stimmy will cover it real well. And here's just another parachute little one. Then you're going to go into your olive and your golden stones. And you can see here, they're just big buggy-legged things. They flop around in the water. They make a lot of commotion. They're fun to watch. This is a lot of times when the olives first show up, the fish really start getting on them early. This can be about as exciting as the big boys, which is what we're going to next. And that's this one here. That's the salmon fly. This is by far the most popular hatch on the entire river. People come from worldwide just to fish this hatch. And you can see why. It's a giant fly. This fly can be 3 inches long. It's a big one. This one's on steroids. This guy's been working out hard. Really big, and as you can see, I've got 4 or 5 different versions of the same fly. There's as many patterns of stoneflies as you can imagine. Everybody has their personal preference. Down here on the right, I've got a great big gorilla. It's lots of rubber legs. When they first start coming back, they're flopping all over the place, and they make all kinds of commotion. Almost all of them nowadays are made out of foam, so they dress real high. They almost all have rubber legs, and you can see there's just from rubber leg stimmies to just all sorts of ways to make these things. But one thing you want to make sure is that you have a low dress fly as well. And once they've been on them for a while, you'll see that they start to get a little shy if maybe they've been pricked by a few flies, and they're a little more inspectful of the fly, if you will. They just kind of, they don't come up and bite them quite as fast as they do when they first start eating them. So you want to have something low dressed, not necessarily really high up in the water. And in that same note, you might want to have a few that you can sink. Once they've been here for a while and they get a little used to them, you can take this fly and drop it under water 6 inches, and you won't believe how many more fish you start picking up. And there's all sorts of patterns for that too. These are just general impressions, of all the flies that we use here. And of course, along with all the other nymphs, you've got the big salmon fly and the stonefly nymphs, all the goldens. And what I've got here are just you know, 2 or 3, 4 examples. Salmon fly nymphs are probably early and up to the point when they start hatching 3 to 1, what everybody wants to throw here. Big rubber leg stuff. It doesn't have to be too complicated. I've got a warbird in here. I've got a bitch creek. I've got just a basic brown salmon fly, and then of course the Kaufman stone, which is just, you know, standard as it gets. Big rubber legs. A lot of people like heavily weighted. It's just a big gob, especially early in the spring, right when the water starts coming up and we're in runoff. It's a real popular pattern. Right up to, you know, just pre-hatch time, you've got to have some big rubber leg stoneflies of some sort. I've got, you know, 4 of them here. There's probably 40 different types. It's going to be a size 2 to a size 6, rubber legs, lots of movement, lots of flopping around, and they're really going to get on these, especially that 2 weeks pre-hatch. That's when the bugs are crawling around and molting their last time. Lots of dislodgement, a lot of fish getting, bugs getting washed by them. So you really want to have some big, movie, rubber-legged stoneflies.